Good evening. As founder of Be Engage Global Foundation, I welcome you all to this deep dive session about the recently launched book on Amazon, Sri Vishnu Mahapuran by Seema Saxena. My objective of this conversation was to really understand why one must read the Vishnu Mahapuran at least once in our lifetime. And what is the secret truth revealed by the Mahapuran that all of us should know? The author is with us, and Seema, loads of compliments to you on the launch of your new book. We welcome you to
Thank you, Funny.
this. Yeah, we welcome you to this platform where we engage with our special guests. You have been on this for 9 years. So, was it a difficult non-fiction to work on?
So yes, Funny, I'll agree with you right away. It is not easy. And the 9 years that I cite are a total project time. You can take it as a project time because there's a lot more that is required to work on a book like this. So let me start off by saying that it was difficult, but it was a joyous challenge. I enjoyed it. Yeah, and it was 9 long years which tested my patience and grit in every sense of the term. However, I must clarify that in these 9 years, not only did I read and translate the Vishnu Puran, but I also came out as one of the, it is within the same 9 years, you can say as a concurrent thing. I came out with my debut book. So I began by translating the Vishnu Puran, but I came out with a collection of short stories first, and it took me more time to complete the Vishnu Puran. That's how it went. So,
So, the name of the book was Oh My Son, right?
yeah, the first book was Oh My Son, which
So,
is, yeah, tell me.
no, I was just getting to my second question. Complete.
Yes, yes, yes. Yeah, it's a collection of short stories which belong to the Vedic period. And as I've mentioned in the introduction to the book, it was a period of, or it was, there were times when people wanted to make sure that they had a son. And if you read this, if you read lot of Purans together and you compare them, you'll figure out the compelling need to have a son. So then all my stories are picked up around the theme of wanting to have a son.
Right.
And so the title is also Oh My Son. So,
Yes.
but then that is
So,
one part. But the real journey was my Vishnu Puran, which I have decided to call it as Sri Vishnu Mahapuran.
oh, is it? Okay. Right.
Yeah.
So, I
Normally people
just,
call it Vishnu Puran, but it is Sri Vishnu Mahapuran
right.
because, it's like this. Purans are a category of our ancient literature. Very simply, if I explain. Purans are a category of our ancient literature. The word Puran, as you know, signifies ancient. It signifies ancient stories. It also connotes mythology. So, in the days when there was an oral tradition of passing on knowledge and discussions, this was composed in those days. And there are 18 Purans, which are the main Purans. And these Purans are called Mahapurans. So if you normally talk with people, they'll come up with a variety of names of Purans.
Mm.
So since Puran means anything ancient and old, so the word Puran can be used, but very in a very narrow sense of understanding a Mahapuran. The original 18 Purans, Vishnu Puran is the third in the sequence of the original Puran.
So, Seema, let's deep dive a little bit into your book and tell us some things, some stats we must all know about our Puranas.
I think since we are trying to grasp maybe the basic roots and the foundations, everybody would like to know probably that there are 18 Purans and they are the Mahapurans. Like I spoke earlier, there is a distinction. You'll come across a lot of names of Purans, but the core Purans are 18. For instance, and they are in a sequential order. So, for instance, the very first Puran is the Brahma Puran. It is then followed by the Padma Puran. It is then followed by the Vaishnava, which is the Vishnu Puran. Then it is followed by the Shaiva, and then with the Bhagavad, and so on till the 18 are over, in which you have Skand Puran, you'll have Kurma Puran, you'll have a lot of other Purans, Agni Puran, so on and so forth, Brahma Vaivarvat and those things. So there are 18 core Purans. And as I said, they are in a sequential order. So they basically have a set format. Every Puran will have a format, which is, there's a generic format and then there are variations. So as the word Puran goes, it has got to do with ancient tales or ancient stories or history or mythology. These are the meanings of the word Puran. So in ancient times, for instance, when you deep read, for instance, I have read the Vishnu Puran in a very deep way. I've read the other Purans as a reference to context. When I come at a particular point, then I will go to another Puran to, search and research on that. Okay, that is the way I have read the Purans. So I have so far managed to read one core Puran fully, back to back. So when I say core Puran, the Sri Vishnu Mahapuran, since I said these core Purans are 18 and they are called Mahapurans, I will also call this book or a scripture a Mahapuran. Now, this Puran has, for example, 12,000 lines in Sanskrit, which are translated. In India, they are translated, not just this Puran, but several more, almost all other Purans, the Mahapurans, are available from Gita Press, as we all know, and they are available in vernaculars, but they are not available in English because this particular organization does not, it is wedded to the purpose of vernaculars. So now there are 12,000 lines, sentences or stanzas. And, these are the ones which comprise just one Puran. If you want to do 18, it's varying lengths. Some are, even more larger and some are smaller. They deal with different topics, but they have a core format, as I was mentioning just a short while ago. What is that format? So a Puran will essentially tell you about the universe. It will maybe at the beginning, maybe in the middle, maybe anywhere in terms of its flow of narrative. It will address the question of formation and dissolution or reabsorption of the universe. This universe, how it was made and how it will end. That every Puran will, core Puran, Mahapuran will address. They will deal with genealogies. They will deal with, like all our vanshas, and they even list the names that so and so, his son was so and so, his son was so and so. So essentially, if you know that a lot of people go to Banaras for for the rituals of the departed souls, and they say that there is a Pandit there who has a book in which are so many generations previous are mentioned and they are written. So like that, in this in every Puran, the genealogy is listed. It is not called explained, but it is listed. It just names, this son of this, son of this, like that. So all the dynasties of India, ancient Indian dynasties, the two Vanshas, Chandravansh and the Surya Vansh, they are explained in terms of their descendants. And what was the unique hallmark about that particular Vansh? So first, it talks about the universe, how it will start, it will end. It talks about genealogy. And then it addresses the question of the Indian Trinity, the holy Indian Trinity, which is Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiv. So Puran addresses these three. Some Puran will lay more emphasis on Shiv. Some Puran will be more on Brahma. Someone will be spending more emphasis we will be talking more about Vishnu, right? So when Vishnu is the core character, it's called Vishnu Puran. If Shiv is the core character, it is Shiv Puran. When it is about Brahma, then it is that's the way it goes. Tell me.
Yeah, so we come to your book. How is that structured? I mean, how many sections do you have, and what all have you covered in the book?
So the Vishnu Puran has 6 sections. Yeah. The first section deals with the moot question, how this universe came about to be. So, what is it made up of? It's if you read to it, if you read it in detail, you'll find that you'll find yourself being reminded of Charles Darwin, his theory of evolution, because it talks about the elements that go into making of the universe. It talks about how the various creatures were made. Those who are waterborne, those who are crawl on earth, or who move on earth, or who fly on air, fly in the air. So how various creatures were created. I mean, how the various birds, reptiles, animals, plants, and human beings, how and even other beings. It's not just about human beings. There are Devs, there are Gandharvas, there are so many, all very, Yakshas, Rakshas, Nagas, how all of these were created. So that's the first section. Now, in order to explain creation, creation cannot be segregated from Kal. Kal means time in English. So it is such a wonderful section that it tells you about time. An everyday word we use, that I need to reach here at this time. Don't waste your time. This word time which we use, time is gold. But what is time? It's explained in the first section, because you cannot explain creation without explaining time. So that's the first section. It reads like as if you're reading science. Sometimes you get a feeling it's very it's like technical stuff. It's got the names of elements and materials, and it's got a sequence, and okay, so it does feel it's not fairy tale reading, it's serious reading. The second section moves on to the whole entire thing about how shall I put it, what is called Bharatvarsh and the 7 continents. And it also talks about King Bharat, on whom our country Bharat is named. So the second section spends time and focus and verses, the stanzas, on these issues. Ancient Bharatvarsh, what it is, its boundaries, it's defining mountains, it's defining rivers. Incidentally, when I read this, I was I don't want to make a political issue about this, but just by way of an academic interest, when India's boundaries are defined, the rivers and other, there is a mention of Kashmir. And Vishnu Puran, the Sri Vishnu Mahapuran is, it is mentioned in one of the pages or one of the verses there that, you see, it's a narration by sage Parashar to Maitreya, who is his student. So Parashar is explaining to Maitreya that India ke regions kya hai, mountains kya hai, the boundary mountains, frontier mountains, and the rivers kya hai, what are the various regions, what are the kingdoms, what are the people that inhabit this land. In that he mentions a region which is the region around the Sindhu, around the Chandrabhaga, and Kashmir. So there's a mention of Kashmir, and he says, I am narrating this to you in the 7th Manvantar. How ancient is this Puran? So there's a concept of Manvantar. Okay, so this is there will be 14 Manvantars. After 14 Manvantars, this earth and this universe will collapse or get reabsorbed. It will be destroyed, if we have to believe this book, okay, or the scripture. So at the midpoint somewhere, 7th Manvantar, that's when this Puran was narrated. And at that time, the concept of time is explained in the second section. The third section moves on to, how the universe is organized. As in, if this universe has to be run, then there has to be an organization structure. So the structure is, like there are 14 Manvantars. Each Manvantar has a Manu or a Lord in charge of it. And there are directions. So, this east direction, north direction. Can you believe in the 7th Manvantara, they are talking about the cardinal points, and they're talking about the points in between the cardinal points, and then lords are appointed for all these points to hold the directions, to safeguard the directions, So basically the whole structure of running the universe is explained, and so is explained the whole thing about what we call how what shall I say, how to run society, which means uh, once you establish the universe, once you have human beings, then how to structure the day-to-day living. So that is where our varna ashrams and those, what is dharma. So we usually think religion, no, but it's a very simple thing. It's just the code of conduct. So those code of conduct, which I think we all Indians kept reading in our school days. We got this in our various subjects. But so here it is. You can say this is the start point. What we read in our school books was actually from here. So the various ashrams are explained, which might be repetitive to a typical Indian because we've already done it in school and all. But this is like reading the authentic stuff. And what is dharma? What are the codes of conduct, the social codes? How the various strata of society have to conduct themselves? That is quite interesting because as modern times keep moving, as times keep moving and the modern days evolve, the newer generations are losing touch with so many things. So we can get back to that. So that's what another section is about. And then comes a whole section which is filled with folklore. So you have the fourth section, which deals with the sun and the moon, the Surya Vansh and the Chandra Vansh. So like I said, every Puran will deal with genealogy. Genealogy means who became whose descendant, who started the Chandra dynasty and who started the Surya dynasty. Pehla king kaun tha and uske bacche and aulad, his sons, the male descendants, who were they? That is explained. And of course, it's basically filled with folklore. Why I say so? Because various kings and queens, what they did. And this is one section which is fully light reading, other than reading the names of the descendants, because they can be, there are chunks and chunks of paragraphs which deal only with names. So sitting as a reader and reading only names can be quite a challenge. But just when you say, oh God, like what am I reading names, comes a lovely anecdote or a very hilarious story, or something which is bizarre, just to read it. And or there'll be something which will tell you, oh, so is this it? Is this why we Indians, have this custom? So those kind of things will come forward in that particular section. And the fifth section is entirely devoted to Krishna, entirely, right from how he was born, why is he black, or why was he black? I mean, he has taken an avatar long back. So why was he black? And the whole, and it is a short section, as in it's not, it doesn't elaborate too much, but it gives you a gist uh, of his various feats, and it unravels a lot of things. I know people read Gita and Mahabharata, which is a separate ancient literature than Purans. But in the Purans, in Vishnu Puran, there is a focus because one of the avatars of Vishnu was Krishna. So how this avatar was planned, what all preparations had gone into it is mentioned. And, basically from his birth till he decided to, part with his body. And when the Pandavas move on to their, Himalayan sojourn and they leave Earth, that's where the section ends. And the last section is on, what is Kali Yuga going to be like? So it's very intriguing. This sage Parashar and Maitreya are sitting in the seventh Manvantar back in time and talking of today, because it is Kali Yuga today as per Hindu calendar. And even if you see the definition of Kali Yuga, means what will be the characteristic features of Kali Yuga, which is explained in this section, we will not be surprised. This is exactly how it is today. No scruples, and I mean, it's very beautifully written. So Prashar gives the salient features of what Kali Yuga will be like and what will people be like in that. And then the book wraps up because it started with the creation of the universe. So in the last section, it explains the reabsorption in what I might call is a real sci-fi kind of a feeling. It explains the reabsorption, how all the elements which came into a particular formation to make the universe, they collapse. Very detailed, very systematic explanation, which it's jaw-dropping to say the least. At least that, I mean, this was the very first Quran that I read. So I was totally floored by what I read. So in short, this is what the book is about. These are the sections, if I've answered your question.
Yes, of course. And in fact, I just noticed that you have mentioned the word Mahapuran so many times. So, what really, if you had to summarize in 2, 3 lines, what really makes the Vishnu Mahapuran great compared to the other Puranas?
So every Puran has a separate focus point. So to that extent, to say this is greater than the other may not be appropriate in my point of view, because there are Purans which deal with certain rituals. There are certain Purans which deal with certain other formalities of conducting society, of conducting daily lives, of of the realm of the unknown. So it will be very difficult for me to comment directly saying, yeah, these are the reasons why this is different than others, or it's greater than the others. So I would rather say that one thing stands out though, because whatever little I've read in the Purans, there is a section here which explains that a lot of Indians I've met, colleagues and friends in society, who want to answer the question that is there something like Shiv is more important than Vishnu, or see, we don't
Yeah.
worship Brahma anymore, and so we have people who worship Shiv, and then Vishnu too in certain parts of India. I think he's more worshipped in certain other parts of India compared to those things. So there are sections here which talk about the equal importance of all three. I think this is where this Puran stands out. Although it is Vishnu Puran, it talks about Vishnu. There is a explanation which clarifies that all three are equally important.
I see.
That it is a supreme. See, what this book does is it demystifies what is God, and it pinpoints to us that there is a supreme intelligence, and that knowledge is power. Okay, that the final supreme power is knowledge. It's very simple actually. It demystifies a whole lot of things. We are unnecessarily running here and there to find our answers. So in doing so, it clarifies that all three are equally essential: Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. I think this is where, because it balances, I think this is where the Puran stands out compared to other Purans.
Anything particularly intriguing that you came across? Some incidents which, whoever is listening to the session, if they got to know about it, they would be surprised, whether it's about how the world is going to end, or how, we are all in the Kali Yuga. So, something which is probably going to happen in the future, or we cannot still foresee it, but which is going to happen and is mentioned in the scripture.
Yes, there are several. I mean, every section has its quota of the oh, is it type of a phenomena. So if you want to know why Krishna was black, for instance, I was talking about it. The answer is here. If you want to know who were the gopis, there's so much about gopis. People understand gopis and gops at Braj very differently in Mathura and Vraj. So, you can understand from this book who they were. It is clarified who they were. Why did Krishna marry 16,100 women in addition to the wives he already had? That is explained, and how he did it. And it's pure sci-fi. There's a lot of sci-fi stuff. I mean, the book there is replete with talk about airplanes and airborne vehicles, about what we do is today. I mean, it's like replication of yourself, how that was a possibility in those days. It talks about various ways in which birth outside the womb, human beings being born outside the womb. There are so many references to it. Some of the famous sages, when we were kids as Indians, we all go to our Amar Chitra Kathas. Some of the famous ones, how they were born outside a womb. There is plethora of mention about being born outside a womb. In fact, There were people like, so when you were very pious and then, if suddenly Vishnu or somebody appeared and say, okay, ask for a boon. People would ask for a boon that in my next life, I want to be born outside a womb.
Oh,
So there's so much in this book. There are a lot of reasons why people should read this book. It will appeal
yeah.
to a large spectrum of people. Those who, the name is the word Vishnu need not necessarily mean it's a religious text. Yes, it has a theology, it addresses theology and, various other things, the Indian philosophy, what is Advait and, what do we mean by God? That it is trying in its way to explain, okay, but that's not all. There's so much in it for teenagers, for those who want to read about ancient wisdom in India. There's quite a lot actually.
So any particular secret truth that is revealed through this Purana?
So like it cannot be secret because it is narrated and captured somewhere. So it's not a secret to that extent. It's secret because we have not read it, so we don't know. But it's there for everyone to read. And truth, this all said and done today, in sitting with all the science and technology that we have around us, we are going to look at this at best as mythology. So I wonder if there is, if we can call it truth. Truth is relative. What is truth for you is not truth for me. So I think we'll have to leave it to each individual to discover the truth. But there are plenty of, surprises in store. I gave you already the illustrations about the way people were born outside the womb and, lot of many other things. There are everyday things we know so much about, like we celebrate Holi, we know Prahlad. We all, kisi ko bhi pucho to, haan, Holika Dahan, and there are those fixed things people will talk, right? But there's a huge chapter, there are several pages dedicated to Prahlad in the first, in the first segment or the second segment of the book. Okay. Now, when you read, you figure out, one of the things the book is replete with is what we call is eologies. You offer a eology to someone who is superior to you. Now, when Prahlad makes those, submissions to the supreme power, those are very interesting reads. They reveal so much about Prahlad, which we don't know. Almost an average Indian doesn't know Prahlad that way. So we don't know the kind of tortures he went through and those kind of things, Now every day, we have this word, we'll say Govind, it's a very common word. But how Krishna got the title Govind? Just in 4-5 lines it is explained, but it's worth a read. So there are truths and there are these little, surprises for everyone inside.
So which are the characters we will get to read about? Like, will there be if you can just list some of them, like you said, Parikshit. So not Parikshit.
Yeah. So
those names, of Prahlad, or which are the other ones we will get to read about?
Okay, so the famous characters you will get to also know will be there'll be stories about about I think a lot of our kings, Yayati's chapter is very interesting. We can read about Yayati in this book, and there are many more actually. Krishna, of course, one whole section is on Krishna. There's a very good segment which talks about the planning. There was a meeting with Vishnu of all the devs, and the planning which went into Ram Avatar.
Okay.
What all they planned for Ram to come around. I don't want to spoil everybody's fun by talking about it, but there's a beautiful, very brief, before you realize you read a wonder page. The beauty of Purans is they talk very less. They just skim. I mean, before you know, it's like, oh, is it? Oh, is it? 5-6 lines, it's over. 10-15 lines, it's over. Of course, the longest chapters are on Prahlad and others, but
okay.
Yeah. So there are a variety. There are
And
hilarious
points.
characters. There's one character who's, henpecked. So I don't know. I feel I have known the world's oldest henpecked husband ever through Vishnu Puran. It's a very
Let's see.
hilarious chapter. Yeah.
Okay.
That is, yeah. And also you find that age and time and all what we know today, it didn't exist that way in those days. So there's another character which is one particular so there is a king Mandhata. He's an important king in the ancient history of India. So Mandhata's story is very interesting, very very interesting, what he went through when his daughters had to get married. And actually, yeah, it's both. It's bizarre and it's intriguing and hilarious. Yes, sir.
All right. So I think we're almost towards the end of our conversation, and
I enjoyed the conversation with you.
yes, in fact, so just to sum up, how many pages is your book? You said it's
The
around
English
270,
translation is 666, triple six, 600.
666 pages, and you're covering around how many shlokas of the Purana?
12, you can round it up at 12,000 Sanskrit
12,000.
lines. 12,000 lines.
So 12,000
If they are in
lines,
pairs, yeah.
666 pages, and you have done a transliteration, right, of the
No, not transliteration. Sorry,
so
translation.
translation.
Not
Okay.
transliteration. No. It's
Okay,
a
so it's a
translation.
translation of the Quran, which is very lucid, very easy to understand, relatable. Like you
Yes.
said, this will, one would, age is no bar. Everybody is going to be able to connect with it.
Absolutely.
And there are many things like a thriller, there are things you are going to discover which you did not know about probably by reading it. And I guess it's available on Amazon. So I think all of you must. She's given us a very good reason why we must go and pick up one of these books and read it thoroughly with that devotion and dedication. Because end of the day, this year June onwards, even I have realized that like how I would call it. I've become a devotee of Shri Krishna, and if through this conversation, whatever I have been able to discuss, I can devote this the marma or the resultant effect of this conversation. I'm sure so many will hear it. So I actually want to Krishna Panamastu. So that's what I want to do. And I really hope that someone somewhere benefits by reading this book, and probably after a year or so we can once again catch up to know the reviews for this book. And any last thoughts, Seema, before we close?
So last thoughts would be enjoy the book. The last thought would be that, and also to some young friends of mine who can, who especially have a flair for Sanskrit. If our youngsters can form a group and take it on themselves to translate our scriptures, we'll do a big service to our nation, because our scriptures need to be translated. I mean, the work is already there are a lot of organizations who are devoted to this cause, but I think more and more Indians should start that. And we have so many senior citizens who are who want to be active, and this is a very good thing for those of us who are retired. It is equally good for the youngsters. They can do it as a wonderful project, and they can do service to the nation by translating our scriptures.
Wonderful. So thank you so much for all your time, and thank you viewers for watching our conversation. And we hope to look forward to the next session in the series that we do under Be Engaged Global Foundation. And I hope to see you with another interesting topic in the sessions going forward. Thank you, Seema, so much. I really see the scholar in you. Maybe I would personally want to catch up with you over a cup of coffee with this book. Yes. And and I think this will make up for some good deliberation, some positive gossip, as I would call it. And thank you so much for your time today.
So funny, you and I meet. We have to meet. And yes, thank you once again for having me. I simply cannot find better words to thank you enough. But it was a pleasure. I enjoyed my talk with you. Thank you.
Yes, and friends, we actually are friends through the Fiki Flow Ahmedabad chapter, and it's been an association of around, I think, 6 years of having known Seema, and she has her own way with words, and she's so clear here. And I wanted to always be an author, but I've never kick-started. But now I can see what it takes to become an author, and it can be really hard work. You really need to consolidate your thoughts when you want to really become an author. Otherwise, you can just stretch the whole thing. But I think now a lot of people are self-publishing their books, and
Yeah,
a lot of
that's true.
youngsters aspire to be authors. So I think, like she suggested, that let us look back and fall back on our scriptures instead of imitating the West. Let us bring something new to the world, which the part of history which is forgotten, and what rich Indian heritage that we have from the Vedas, from the scriptures, from this is not fiction. These were real characters, and when somebody says that you have a Vaikuntha Loka, and there is life after that, and you have to repeat life there as a human, all this now seems so true to me because I've started understanding the scriptures. So even in my 40s, if I'm able to do this, I think a lot of youngsters should come forward and look at our scriptures to fall back on. So on this note, thank you so much, Seema, and we close this session. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you once again. Bye. See you.